Hello, everyone. Welcome to HBCU Drumline Talk. My name is Ricardo Reese, and I'm joined with Elijah Powell, EP the Great, and want to welcome you once again. This is our 5th episode, and believe it or not, it actually does feel like we've done pretty much like 70 of these. But however, it's been all fun. We've had some great folks come on, some great people to talk on our podcast as well. And one thing for today's guests, I have to be honest, I have noticed that there are some drum lines out there who you can recognize them by the way they look, by the way they sound, how they play. And one of the drum lines that I've always looked at from afar and said, man, from a distance, these guys sound really good. And it's Norfolk State's Drumline. And they're known as $1 Million Funk Squad. And today, we're actually going to talk to the man behind the sound, behind the look of the drumline. So we want to introduce Professor William Beathea, Mr. Beathea, Professor Beathea on our podcast today. And we just want to welcome him at this point. And you got anything to add to that?
Me? No, I'm good. I'm ready to get started. If y'all ready, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in. Professor Beathea, we want to welcome you to HBCU Drumline Talk. And first, when did your journey with percussion begin?
Well, first, let me say I'm ecstatic to be here. I appreciate you guys doing this. And I pray that you and yours as well during this pandemic and all the things that are going on and that you guys are staying healthy. And I really appreciate this. I think it's going to be a help, the good work you guys have been doing to spread percussion education to everybody is fantastic. I just wanted to tell you that before we start.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I got started, believe it or not, probably 4th, 5th grade. My mother played percussion in high school. And so when I was a kid, she brought me a practice pad, probably about 4th or 5th grade. And she wanted to observe how interested I would be in it. And of course, I played that thing all the time. And so the following year, I ended up getting a drum set. And she saw I was really interested in it. She provided private lessons for me. And I studied, and the rest was history. I couldn't stop. But my mom was sort of a visionary, man. I mean, you're talking about somebody playing drums when females weren't supposed to be doing that, and so she was kind of ahead of her time and very progressive, and I really appreciate her for, putting the sticks in my hand. Look, she used to challenge me when I first started, y'all. After I got good, she wouldn't do it no more. I used to chop her out. Yeah, but that's it, man. That's how I got started. I never looked back. I also was good at basketball, but I had to make a decision on which one I was going to do, and I chose percussion, and it worked out pretty good for me.
So it's those choices between basketball and percussion, and you chose the right route.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Good.
So at what point did you want to become a percussion instructor?
That's a great question. I'm going to be honest. Going through school, I just knew I wanted to do something involving percussion. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at 3 areas. Working in an education department at a major company, one of the major percussion companies. I was looking at teaching, and I was looking at performing. So it wasn't until grad school when I graduated, and Professor Johnny Lee Lane, shout out to him. He was my teacher in grad school. He told me, I want you to go home, enjoy your family, and I'm going to send you a list of jobs for you to choose from. And he wasn't lying. A week later, there were 13 jobs on there.
Wow.
And out of all the jobs that he had ready for me, the one I thought was most interesting was Jackson State.
Okay.
And I decided at that point, I'm going to take a stab at working on the college level, working with HBCU band, HBCU Drumline. And I'm going to, that was the thing that kind of stood out from the list to try. So I did that, and the rest has been history from there.
So can I ask real briefly here, before you got that opportunity, working with Johnny Lane, were you familiar with HBCU drumlines?
Great question. I did know of them. I had a friend in high school who, when we were choosing colleges, I went to Ball State in Indiana.
Right.
And he said he was going to go to Jackson State. And that was unheard of from anybody in my area. I'm from Indiana, small town called Elkhart, South Bend area, up by where Notre Dame is. And, you know, he said he was going to Jackson, and most of us went to Indiana, Ball State, Purdue, Michigan State, around in that area. And when he said Jackson State, that kind of opened my eyes up to it. He was showing me film, and he would say, yeah, man, you're going to go to Ball State. You're going to do all that core style stuff. I'm going down to Jackson, and I'm going to be getting down. I'm going to have way more fun than you, trust me. So that was a little joke that we had going back and forth. And it's funny that I ended up working there for my first job. But so, yeah, I was aware. I didn't have a lot of knowledge but I knew about Jackson. I knew about Grambling, FAMU, but I didn't have an extensive knowledge of all the other awesome universities that were out there.
So just, it sounds like your background was more or less dealing with like the core style, not per se HBCU style. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Core style high school, core style both colleges, undergrad and grad were both core style schools. So, in which, you know what, it turned out to be very helpful, because now when I got the job at Jackson, I was able to infuse my background of core style with their show style. Now, it still looks like more show style, but what I did for Jackson State was really improve their playing ability, really challenge them musically. They started playing stuff that they never dreamed of playing. And I wanted to enhance their musicianship, you know, and that was something I was really proud of for doing for Jackson.
Okay. So good question. So I'm glad you mentioned Jackson State, because I think EP is going to just go ahead and follow up with the question on the third one at this point.
Yeah. So what years were you at Jackson State, and describe your experience as the percussion instructor? You probably answered some of that already, but.
Yeah, it was great. It was really overwhelming at first to go from grad school to such a popular program. Mm-hmm. You know, when you warm up at Jackson State, you're at the top three HBCU band program in the country. So to see all the crowds, 60,000 plus every week. When I got there and finally got signed, the first home game was Southern. If you can imagine seeing Southern in Jackson for the first time coming out of a traditionally white university, I mean, it was like, wow. I was just in awe. But my years there were great. I went to Jackson in 1993 was the year. And I was there up until 2000. That's the year that I left there and went to Norfolk State. But it was 1993, man, and it was some great years, awesome experience. I felt like when I left Jackson State, I was ready to take that next step in terms of HBCU band. I learned a lot there. I learned about the students. I learned about how HBCU programs work. I learned about how popular and the big time showmanship and the popularity of HBCU bands and what those bands are doing for the colleges. When I left Jackson, I thought I would be prepared for anything, to be honest with you. I could have went to any school and be ready to work, because they got me started in arranging. My first band arrangement was at Jackson State. I wrote Ask of You by Raphael Sadiq. So I learned a lot there. And my experience with the guys in the percussion section and how they think and what they want to be and how they want to sound, all of that. Working with Dr. Liddell, working with Paul Adams was there with me. He's a legend in the game. Michael Magruder, who's now band director at Winston-Salem State. Ed Duplessis, we call him Pops. You know, he's passed, but he's the one that did all the charting, and he was a percussionist. So he used to call me in his office all the time. And bro, it was a great first job, man. I will always, when I go back to Jackson, man, I'm always thankful. And it's surprising because kids are really into their history. You know, the last time I was down to Jackson, all those kids knew who I was. And I didn't think that was going to be the case because I'd been gone so long. But it was a great experience. And to come into a program like that right out of grad school really got me started in understanding what the HBCU bands is all about.
You know, a lot of people don't, you know, it's a blessing, you know, especially working with Johnny Lane, under being a student of Johnny Lane and getting that opportunity, you know, right out of grad school, you know, it's a dream for some folks.
Yeah.
So that was good for you. Good for you. You pretty much, you know, throughout that, you were at Jackson State in 1993, and then, you know, had about 7 years at Jackson State, and then you transitioned to Norfolk State in 2000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, because that was why you've already answered the next question. You know, when did you transfer to Norfolk State University? So as you transferred to Norfolk State University, did you know anything about Norfolk State?
You know, when the students in the Sonic Boom of the South found out that I was leaving, they're the ones who showed me film of Norfolk State. They were like, Mr. B, we're sorry that you're leaving us, but you're going to an all right school, like, because I had never heard of Norfolk State. You know, being down in the SWAC, it was just all about SWAC. You know, I think Howard played us a couple times, FAMU, but it was basically, you know, SWAC, Tennessee State, and SWAC and everything else. So I hadn't heard of Norfolk State at the time, but the students talked about it to me. They came to the office and they were like, Mr. Beathea, they got a great drum line, you know, and they showed me clips of Norfolk. So that was exciting. But let me tell you why I made that decision.
Yes.
It wasn't so much about Norfolk State at the time. It was who they had on the staff. All right. And I saw myself as the missing piece to what could be an awesome, possibly greatest band staff of all time. You had Dr. Sanford, O'Neill Sanford. I know you guys know that name.
Yes.
You had Paul Adams, who everybody recognizes him as the GOAT when it comes to arranging, right? You had Stephanie Sanders, upcoming. She was assistant band director at Alcorn at the time. We used to battle each other. They just signed her. She is a phenomenal woodwind player, unbelievable musician. They just signed her, and what they were missing was the top flight percussionist. And so when that job came open, and they actually called me, and when I looked at that band staff, I said to myself, if I go to Norfolk State and work with these great minds, we got a chance to do something special. I mean, you're not going to run into a collection of awesome, talented individuals like that. So that is why I said, you know what, I'm coming. They offered me a pay raise from what I was getting, and a chance to work with that staff is why I chose Norfolk State. And when I got here, I'm glad I did. The progressiveness of the program and what I was able to learn in terms of, and it's important for me to tell you guys this too. You asked me what years was I percussion instructor at Jackson State. I was actually assistant band director. And I'm trying to get the percussion students out there to understand if they want to get into this area, no music, no band, no chords, know your scales, know how to balance a band, know how to rehearse a band, start learning those things so that when the opportunities come out there for percussionists, you have much more to offer a school other than writing a cadence. And I think that's important when there's a percussionist that's on his stuff, you know, that has really studied and practiced and has more to offer than just the rhythmic aspect of music. They make awesome band directors when that happens. And so I'm not just talking about me. I'm just saying in general, some of the really good band directors I've met in my time have been percussionists. But you got to get out of that drumming realm. You know what I mean? You've got to be willing to learn band and study music. And so that was one of the things I think Norfolk was attractive to me about. That not only could I take care of the percussion element, but if they needed me to do dance routine, if they needed me to rehearse the band, if they needed me to assist with drill and work with Dr. Sanford on the field, I was able to do all those things. So that makes you versatile, you know. And, you know, for me, it turned out when Doc left and Paul Adams left, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to get the job because I had taken time to study and prepare myself for, you know, to be able to take care of the band by myself if need be. Yeah,
that's major. Everything that you said right there is really major, just to be versatile. If a percussionist is looking to really do something with band, period, just know music. It's really good points.
Very good information. So talk to us about the challenges you have had as a percussion instructor at both schools.
That's a really good question. This is going to sound arrogant, but I promise it's not. It's coming from a good place. I haven't had any challenges because I think of the job as I have been hired to what? Teach those kids, give them what they need to be able to go out there and perform at a high level, make sure the equipment is quality, and also to ignite their creativity. That's a big thing with me. A lot of the presentations that we've done at Jackson and Norfolk, in particular Norfolk, I may write snippets of it, and I challenge the kids to be creative and write things that we can put in there. Like we had a lot of major presentations for percussion where I might write the beginning and ending, and I make the students come up with what we're going to put in the middle. So I never looked at the job as challenges. I kind of looked at it as my job. Now, I will tell you this. I have been fortunate at Jackson and at Norfolk to have band directors that supported my cause. All right. So I didn't have like some of my colleagues that call me. I got a lot of students now that are out there, you know, in the business. And a lot of problems they're having is they're not getting the financial support, which may not be on purpose. The program may not have the money, but they're not getting the financial support for what? Proper equipment to be competitive for scholarships, you know, and all those things that you need to be able to put your drum line out there and be competitive. I've never had those issues, but they are out there. So I've been fortunate, man, to have two programs that really supported me. When I got down to Jackson, I thought the drums were crap. We needed new gear. And Dr. Liddell was very supportive. I went out there and I tried to find a product that I think would sound good for that line. And we did. They bought them. Same thing at Norfolk. Dr. Sanford bought that line that I wanted. We went to Midwest conference. I walked around, found the line. I wanted to go with Dynasty. We ended up, you know, having a agreement with them, as well as Remo and Vic Firth, full endorsements on those sides. So I've been fortunate in that way. But when I talk to my colleagues and some of my students that are in the business, man, money for equipment, competitive scholarships, some of those are the things. Quite frankly, I don't have problems with the kids wanting to practice. The problem, you got to run them out of there so they go study. Huh? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Exactly. So, those kids are really serious about it, man. And so, and I would urge, you know, those that are in the business that you're really going to have to find a way to sit down and talk to your band director about the importance of having quality equipment and competitive scholarships. Otherwise, you're going to struggle against an A&T. You're going to struggle against Norfolk, you know, if you got to see those lines. And Bethune-Cookman, another one, you know, V-State, Hampton's getting better. You know, if you don't invest in your equipment and your scholarship, you're going to struggle when you see those lines. And the students aren't going to, you know, want to come to your school. So you have to be supportive in that area. And we all know percussion is a major part of HBCU band. I hope I'm not being long-winded here. You guys probably, when you called me, you got the real one. I'm telling you now.
No, you good. Keep talking.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to chime in real quick. You said something about, you know, excessive practice. And EP, you remember that time, you know, we're freshmen and 9, 10 o'clock. And we're out there in front of Busy Montag and we're playing. And who walks up? The president of the university, Dr. Eddie Moore, says, "You guys are here kind of late. Hope you get your work done."
Yeah. At 10 o'clock, we just getting started practice. We just started warming up before we ran through the cadences. So yeah, but that was back in the day.
Yeah, but that's really good, man. We appreciate your information, and by all means, this is your platform to, you know, take as long as you want. And that gets into my next question. So you really pretty much talked about the challenges, which you said you didn't really have any, but really describe the difference between the students you have now as opposed to when you first started. And please think about like the talent, skill level, things like that, work ethic.
Man, I really appreciate this question. And it's a very powerful one. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to answer this question in two parts. I'm going to talk about the music aspect first. Music hasn't changed. What I mean by that is for you to be good at it, the amount of preparation and practice time and studying that you have to do to be able to perform it hasn't changed. So a kid I may have had in the late 90s or early 2000s had to do the same things as a kid now, and vice versa, to actually prepare to go out there. There's no shortcuts to music. I know the modern day kids, Generation Z, they want to Google, they want to YouTube, but guess what? YouTube can't help you. You have to get in that practice room and you have to, what? Get that horn to your hand. You have to put those sticks in your hand and practice it to get it. So in that aspect, it hasn't changed. I will say that drumming has evolutionized. There are more techniques available now than there were before, more advanced techniques. So the kid that I may get now can probably play some different things than a kid back in the late 90s or early 2000s. But I guarantee you, if those same grids or those same contemporary hybrid rudiments were out, the kids in the 90s would have played them too. All right. So in that aspect, it hasn't changed because you have to do what you have to do to be able to perform the music. Here is the biggest change, though. It has more to do with generations. When I started teaching, and through most of my teaching career, I was teaching the millennials. All right. Now, the millennials are more independent. They're the ones that called me to find out what the audition was about, negotiating scholarships, and then they would go back and talk to their parents. They were more independent. They were more, I can't wait to go to college and get my life together type of students, right? Now we have Generation Z. And Generation Z is a very technically savvy generation. They're social media. They're very social on their devices, but they're not as independent, as the millennials, meaning they don't handle their business. It's the parents that I talk to all the time now, not the student. It's the parents that are calling me about every little thing, not the student. It's the parents that are calling me saying, well, what are the scholarship requirements? What are the auditions stipulations? Not the student like it used to be. So what I'm seeing is that this student is so dependent on the help of the parents. And through a little research, I found out that, 9/11, all the school shootings, it's caused parents over these couple of generations to be a little bit more protective of the students, of their kids. And they sort of take care of everything for them. They bulldoze all the problems away and do it themselves to make sure that it gets done. And so what we're having is students that need heavy motivation. You got to stay on them about practicing. You've got to stay on them about their responsibilities with school, getting paperwork in on time. And so they're not quite as independently successful as the millennials when I first started. So look, you can't Google how to play this hybrid rudiment. You got to get in there and practice it. And some of them spend some time with it and get frustrated, where you got to motivate them to go back and keep practicing. So one thing that you can't mess around with is music. And so that is the main difference, the independence of the millennials compared to the dependency of the Generation Z folks. Because I give more motivational speeches now, guys, than I ever had to in the beginning. And you just got to teach them to take care of themselves. And let me tell you what else has happened with that too. A lot of mental problems. We have a lot of students that are depressed, a lot of mental issues now, not just at Norfolk, but all over the country. Our counseling centers open from 9 to 5. It's packed every day because students, that harsh reality of life is hitting them without their parents around. All right. And so I got so many students, man, that may have to miss practice or a couple practices because they're mentally not in the right place. They're realizing it's a world out there that they're not quite prepared for because their parents did so much for them. And that is the biggest challenge right now, bros, to tell you the truth. But in terms of chopping, the folks that can play now remind me of the folks that could play back in the early days of me teaching as well. Because it's the same attitude of practicing and preparing. So I hope that kind of touches the question, that answers your question.
Yes, of course. You really brought up some good points, with the mental aspect, the generational aspect, just the whole practicing, students that you had in the 90s compared to the students that you have today. Clearly there may be a different work ethic. And I can tell you honestly that, I don't know if EP can chime in on this. When I got dropped off at school, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get away. I couldn't wait to, make my own decisions, talk to people, talk to my, I couldn't, I just, please, let me do my own research and things. Let me talk to the own percussion instructors, my own people and everything. So it's good input. Thank you.
And Ms. Beathea, sorry, Professor Beathea, I want to go back, and sorry to get off subject, but I work in the mental health field. So I guess why do you think it's so big now compared to, I guess, when we was young, or see what I'm saying? Why is it such a big thing now? Why do you think?
Man, I'd be interested in hearing that from you. One thing I have noticed though is the parents, and not to tell anybody how to raise their child, but they seem a little bit overprotective. So what happens when the student goes to college and he's got to make those daily decisions on his or her own, it becomes overwhelming. And, when you grow up hearing you can be anything you want to be, you can do anything you want to do. And then the reality sets in that you may not have a skill set to do everything. You may not have a skill set to be this or a skill set to be that, but you got skill sets to be this. And I think it's sort of a shock. I've seen students that don't want to disappoint their parents. I've seen students with going to band and going to class. It's too much for them, and all this scheduling and making these meetings and it's too much for them because they haven't had a practice of doing it. So to me, that's what I think. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I just think parents have been, for this generation now, a little overprotective. I got a call today for someone who's interested in coming from Norfolk State, and it wasn't the kid. It was his band director or his mom is emailing me. I got a kid who didn't do what he was supposed to last semester and needs our help to help him, get his probation complete, his academic probation complete so he can continue. Guess who emailed us? His mother. So that's the best thing that I can tell you, man. I think the overprotection from the parents doesn't hurt. And technology has been somewhat of a problem too.
Well, you hit both nails on the head, because that's what I think is the problem also.
Right.
Yeah. But to jump back on subject, the next question, what HBCU Drumline has always given Norfolk State University its most challenging battle ever, either face-to-face or from a distance in the stands, in your eyes?
That's a very good question too. Let me tell you, when we prepare to go against another drum line, it really is never about the other drum line. We kind of have a standard at Norfolk, and we want to meet that standard. We're actually competing with some of the better lines that have been here in the past, and we want to show the Norfolk State lore and the Norfolk State alumni a product they haven't seen before. That really is our number one goal. So, when we were going against you guys at V State, we took that seriously. We wanted to put products out there that that would shock things we've done in the past, would be different, would impress our people and meet the standard of Norfolk State. Same thing with A&T or when we go against Hampton. So we never really looked at it like the other line. We looked at it as a standard we're trying to meet and to prepare for. Now, I will say this. When you battle a V State on Labor Day, and before Hampton's getting their stuff going now, but for a while it was all about V State and Norfolk.
That's right.
That's a big deal. All right. And you talk about an interstate rival like that, that is a big deal. The times we battled Hampton, that's right across the water from us, that's a big deal. A&T, is a big deal. So it was not quite about what line. We took every line seriously. We didn't try to sleep on nobody. Now, I will tell you this. What I've seen lately is the most interesting battle is Norfolk State versus A&T. It's interesting because our styles contrast so hugely. You know, it's such different styles. And so when I travel around the high schools and high school battles and pay attention to what's going on, high schools are either following us or following them. It's no in between. I mean, you either the showman of A&T or you're the chopping dude that emulates Norfolk. And so it's interesting when we battle because there seems to be a clash of different philosophies there, you know, which kind of makes it a little bit interesting. Are you more on the playing side? And I'm not saying that A&T is not playing, but are you more on the technical and playing side, or are you more on the showmanship side? And those two clashing ideas make it more interesting when we do battle them, especially recently. Shout out to A&T, shout out to V-State and Hampton. But I will say that. But you know, we took everybody seriously, man. And let me tell you, when people come see us, they're ready. They're ready. I remember some awesome performances from Hampton, V-State. So we got to be on your toes. So we look at all you guys on the same level, and that you got to be ready, or V-State will deal with you. You got to be ready, or Hampton will deal with you. You got to be ready, or A&T will deal with you. So that's just kind of how we, you know, looked at that.
I will say, Rick, before you go to the next question, I admit you guys keep us on our toes ever since I've been there. You know, part to do with because sometimes y'all might be on the school we see for the whole season. You know, being Division II CIAA, we don't see too many lines, but regardless, you know, you guys, you know, always kept us on our toes. So shout out to you. You know, everything you have done there. I'm very, very fond of your work, your writing skills, especially your writing skills and stuff. But yeah, I would say you guys, you know, kept us on our toes and still do.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. And trust me, the feeling's mutual. There's some times y'all came up in Echoes and got a lot of house up in there, more than I wanted to hear. You know, so hey, one performance stands out. I don't know if you guys were in this line or not, but y'all were chopping. This is NSU, VSU drumline battle. Y'all were chopping, and then the beat just dropped, and y'all played "She Got a Dunk," and a girl walked by. Y'all remember that block?
Yeah, I was an instructor then. That was a last minute idea the week of the battle.
Hey, and crowd went crazy. You know what I said? Oh, that was a great idea, man. Because that song was so popular. Yeah. And the way you guys put that out there, it just dropped and came out of nowhere. That killer. Yeah. That's one of those moments.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so let me spend just a little bit of time on this particular question. So you said some couple of things like just standards, being ready for your opponent. And I think back to, and of course the battle situation has changed over the years. So when I was there at Virginia State, 96 to 2000, you know, there's 4 years, but we only saw you guys, I believe, twice because of hurricane, weather issues, things like that. So I will say that the quality of the battle now, you really get to look close at what's going on. Back when EP and myself were marching, we would get off the bus, go into the stands, and that would be about it. Now, you guys would be all the way across the field. And I even remember, even before you got Dick Price Stadium, it was that first stadium that that we marched at in
ODU.
ODU. That,
yeah.
The battles then, I think it was a little bit more intense because you only got one shot. You got one shot to make a statement, and then it was it. That was it. No video, no nothing, and we'll see. We might see you next year.
Yeah.
And that was it, if the weather permitted. So out of 4 years, we saw you guys twice, and I say that because, you know, you said something that's very important. The standard when you play somebody, you just have to be on point all the time, regardless of, you know, who's showing up. Because if you're not, all it takes is one time to slip up, and then that's what the crowd remembers. Oh, man, you did this or you did that. Well, they did this or you did that. But I just meant to say that, you know, that the battles now, you really get a chance to look at them. But when we were there, it was a little bit different feel because you had to be on point.
Yeah. And let me tell you something else that impacts that too. The rules that the HBCU game have gotten a little bit more strict. I'm sure you guys have noticed that.
Real
When
strict.
when I was in the SWAC, it was customary after the halftime show for both drum lines to battle in the end zone. And that would be going on while the game is being played. Now, we wouldn't be exactly in the end zone, but what I mean is right behind it. So that was customary. When halftime is over, whoever went first, their band goes back in the stands, and the drum line would meet behind the end zone. And whoever goes second, their band goes back in the stands, and that drum line would meet behind the end zone, and they would challenge each other about 6-7 minutes and then go back up. All right, there's no more of that. And same thing when I first got to the MEAC, man, we were able to get people on the track, and do some battles and stuff. And it's just changed. So that for us up here, we don't even get a chance to do that unless it's after the game. And then you got to hurry up because there's turn the lights out on you too. But it's just gotten strict, man. And so, like you said, man, you got to appreciate your time in the stands, and hopefully the indoor battles can give the kids some experience, because I think it's, drums do something for people, man. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a drummer, but there's something about rhythm and drums and a beat that'll make a soul want to move. And everybody loves drums. I mean, even when you're in 5th grade, right? And you're in band, and then what do you guys want to play? Here's the trumpet. You get a few hands. Here's the saxophones. You get a few hands. When they put the drum set out there, all the hands go up. And it's just something, about drums. And there's something that we give people and can offer people that they enjoy that we need not suppress. We got to let it happen because people enjoy it. And I've always been one, if the people are feeling it, you keep doing it.
That segues into the next question here. And personally, I just want to ask you, Professor Beathea, how do you personally feel about HBCU drumline battles?
Yeah, I love them for the reasons I just stated. I think the crowd wants to see it. I think drums just do something to people and makes them feel a certain way. They enjoy it. And then the students, let's talk about drummers. Typically, the drummers in the wrong kind of band program can be like the black child, right? The band director got to make sure those trumpets are straight. And I understand that. Got to make sure those woodwinds are straight. Those trombones are on point. And the least worked group in band practice are the drummers. They just assume that you guys can make up a beat back there, any old beat, which may not even fit the rhythmic context of the song you're playing, but that's another story for another day. But in a band rehearsal, all of the rehearsal is going towards the wind instruments. So the drum line is just back there, and I'm thinking, well, what do we have to do? How does our part fit in? What's our importance? And so I think over the years, the drumline battles have made it more interesting for percussionists to be in band. Okay, it really has. It's something to look forward to, so that they can sit back in a music rehearsal and may not have anything said to them by any band director for 4 days. But you'll get a chance to battle and do your thing. So I think drum lines have kind of helped even the plateau and the interest for the drummer to be in band, and have something to look forward to. In that aspect, I think the battles have been really important as well. Because I got kids that come to me, man. They're coming to me because they can't wait to battle V-State. They can't wait to battle A&T. I mean, that's one of the things, that they want to do. They can't wait to see Bethune, and I know for me, I'm the director here, but being a percussionist, we're able to kind of make it interesting. Like in my band, you don't get a chance to perform like that until you know all your music. All right, let me just say that. We have a responsibility to the Spartan Legion. You have a responsibility to the band. You have to take care of that first. So you have to know your music and be able to drive the band. And once those kids demonstrate that they can do that, then we allow them to play the cadences and do all the fun stuff. But you got to keep the priorities straight. But while doing that, I do think that the drum battles have helped percussionists, their interest in band, carry all the way to college. So,
that's interesting that you said that. I would have never thought a young student would come to you and say, "Hey, look, I want to be in I want to be in Norfolk State's Drumline / $1 Million Funk Squad because I want to battle Virginia State. I want to specifically play against them, or I want to specifically play against North Carolina A&T."
Well, I don't mean they're calling you guys' name out personally, but I'm saying when they go on YouTube and go on Instagram and they see all those drum battles, they want to be a part of it. It doesn't matter who it is. Right. But we got so many videos out there with you guys and A&T and Hampton, and they see that and they want to participate in that. And so that's a good thing. But I just think that as band directors, once we get those kids, we have to figure out ways, nuteric or modern ways, to be inclusive of that percussion section. I think A&T does a great job with it too. I think they got a role in that band, that is very popular. They have hundreds of kids trying out every year. They go on the road and have their own shows, things like that to really increase, the want to be in it from a drum perspective. Because in my years in band, man, we in the back of the room like this, like, man. Because let's face it, most of the band directors may not have all that, skill in percussion. They may have more concerns with winds, and I understand that. I do the same thing here at Norfolk. We got to get that. Look, that melody got to be right. That harmony's got to be right. So I definitely get it. But it's days and days that go by when you're not rehearsing anything back there. That has to do something to you mentally as a musician.
Time to go outside. You're gonna block up practice.
Yeah.
Social media has helped the battles also. I can remember, I guess my younger years in college, you would hear a battle, but you didn't have no footage of it. So it was kind of hard. But now, you can just log in Facebook, YouTube, whatever. So I think that helps, for us kids wanting to, join the drumline. It's all you see now. Like I say, that's one thing A&T does good, Cold Steel, their media presence, it's all over. So going to the next question, in your opinion, what would you like to see in the future for HBCU Drumline?
It's a great question too. What I would like to see is for all the lines to stay progressive. Stay progressive, man. Each line has its own style, but add to it. See what the latest trends in drumming are, and see if you can implement those within the style that you have. Because look, man, if you are living off the traditions, things guys played in the 70s, and that is the limit of what your presentations are going to be, that's not good. The 70s guys left that for the 80s guys. The 80s guys should have brought something to leave for the 90s guys, and so forth. So I would challenge the lines to be progressive, man. Keep your style, know your history of the line that you're participating in, but see what you can do to add to it so that those that come after you will be growing from your presence, not just living off of what somebody else wrote or somebody else did. Add something, keep it fresh. Because let me tell you something. When I got here in 2000, and we had all the battles and the battles and the battles, I started saying to myself, we're doing the same thing. I said, I've got to do something to get Norfolk State moving here, and not rely on all of the material that they have written in the past. And so that's when we started writing and being creative. But even though we were adding things, it's still under the scope of the Norfolk State style. And that's what I would like to see lines. I think A&T's done a marvelous job at that. Virginia State, marvelous job at that. You guys have of keeping it fresh, but within what you do. And that's my biggest thing. Don't say it's tradition, and then you don't want to be creative. You don't want to add, and the line just stays bland the whole time because everybody's seen a million times what you've done. So keep adding new stuff. Keep everybody on their toes. And that's the biggest thing. I think it's such a popular, realm of HBCU band that it's going to survive. It ain't going nowhere. HBCU drumline battles are going nowhere. And so the key is, if they're going to be here, let's do something with it for the next generation to come through.
Yeah, that's good. Just want to go off the script here real quick and just ask something. Talk about the traditions and being progressive. And when I think about Norfolk State University, $1 Million Funk Squad, outside of the look, I think about the sound, right, that you guys have. And if you can just take a couple moments and just talk about the sound. How did you come across, what motivated you to use those clear heads, the sound of that bass drum line, or just what motivated you to get that sound out of your drum line, or how did you come about that? How did you get that sound?
Yeah. The kind of beats that we play and the technique that we're using, I needed a drum head that would be articulate, especially when you talk about the snare and the tenor line. But in the bass drum line too, especially towards the top end. But on the flip side of that coin, we're playing so much R&B, rap, right, funk songs, that I was looking for a head that can give that thump without being too thumpy, if that makes sense. And those 2-ply clear heads, man, when you start grooving with them, kind of emulates like a bass drum on a drum set sound when everybody's playing in unison. But you can still get a warm enough articulation enough on the top end of the line. So that is why we use those heads. We had to do a lot of the Remo, the inner bass drum foam, to get the right resonance too. It's a lot of work. You just can't throw the heads on there. But that head reminded me, like when I wanted to sound like a big drum set, I could. But when I want tonal things happening, they would be articulate enough for the people to hear it. So that's basically why we chose that head on the and plus those heads they've evolutionized a lot. A lot of people like the white heads on BDs. They're very articulate. They're more articulate than the clear heads we're using. But it was a combination of articulation as well as having that funk sound when we need it. I thought that was the best head. We have an endorsement with Remo, so I thought that was the best head for what we were trying to do on the field.
Right. So I see that recently you guys transitioned from those clear heads over to the ebony. I think they look like Evans. Is that Evans?
Yeah. No,
okay.
They're Remo. Yeah.
Okay, Remo. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that pinstripe?
Yep.
Evans pinstripe. Okay.
Yeah. Some of that was we changed gear. We went over to System Blue. And the drums look so sweet with all black that we wanted to try out that particular head that you're talking about. It sounded good. It still gave us what we were looking for. And that drum is so tony. And I'm saying that in a good way. Like the tone quality of those bass drums compared to what we had, night and day. And so that particular head, and a lot of it's the drum you're using too. You have to try a lot of things. Like when I signed with Remo, they sent me every head they had. And we put them on, try them, take them off. Put them on and try them. And there's no right or wrong answer, guys. That's important for people to know. It's the sound that you want to have, And like you mentioned Evans, there's a lot of lines playing with Evans. That Evans head is so articulate. Oh, it's so articulate. And if that's what you're looking for, you need to go there. But I was looking for something that had articulation, but had that funk feel to it as well, where you wouldn't have to tune for funk or you wouldn't have to tune for clarity. You can get it all in one head. So, but we switched to that head, and it sounds really good on that drum. So we're going with it.
Good. And I asked that question because that's the follow-up question to, the next thing I'm about to ask is a lot of young instructors out here trying to be instructors of either high school line or a college line. And if you take a look back, if you had to give some advice, what advice would you give to a young percussion instructor at this time?
I really appreciate that question as well. That's a powerful one too. Here's the first thing. Do your research. on the school that you are working for. You can't teach somebody if you don't know where they've been. So let's say I got hired at King High School in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to watch every footage of King High School that I can, every footage of their drumline that I can find. And I want to know where that school has been in terms of percussion. And so that will give me an idea of where to take them. Okay. Same thing for college. When I got to Norfolk State, I listened. I didn't come in here, Mr. Know-it-all. You know, the first day, what I did was had the kids play everything they knew for me. I wanted to hear where they were at. Then I watched footage of them. I said, oh man, these boys can play. So now I have an idea on what I could do to help them take this into the future. That's number one. It's like people who go to a restaurant, man, and they sit down and they start seasoning their food before they even taste it. You know, and I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. They know that they can teach percussion. They know they have hands. So they say, I'm just going to go in here and go to work. No. Step back, research. Let's find out where this school has been in terms of percussion. Let's find out what these students know. And then that will give you an avenue of which to, go in terms of what you need to do to help that line prepare to perform at a high level. The next thing I want to tell you guys that I was talking to one of my former students today that I'm really proud of. And I mentioned this earlier. For me, it's igniting the students' creativity. If you are doing everything for the kids, then you're not teaching them anything. And I would challenge all percussion instructors out there, if you have a performance, maybe it's just a dance routine, let the kids write 16 measures of a dance routine, or let them make it up. If they can't write yet, let them kind of fiddle around and sing out or beat out on the table or beat out on the drum what they think they should play in those 16 measures. Start getting those kids' creativity going. Because you guys may or may not believe this, but all of the productions I have done at Norfolk State, I have never written 100% of anything. Okay, now I wrote a lot. A lot of times I would write the beginning, I'd write a chunk in the middle, and I'd write the ending, and I'd make our kids put in the middle. You know, same thing at Jackson. They were so creative, making up things and adding new things to the book. And that's important because, look, let me tell you something. If your kids can't get along, what I mean by get along is get out there and perform. If you're not there, you haven't done your job. Listen to me, man. If your kids cannot get out there and perform, if you're not there, then you haven't done your job. I'm confident right now that if me and Miss Sanders in emergency, that Spartan Legion, if we've already done our job, that Spartan Legion is going to be there on Saturday and they're going to do a good job. They're going to be ready to go. You know, and we involve kids. We involve them in the creativity part. We have a lot of arrangers in the band. Of course, I've got my staff that can help them get those arrangements together so we can play them. But we're playing a lot of things our students are writing. You know, some of our best block performances, man, like 2 years ago with A&T. I don't know if you guys saw our tenor line. Whew, those kids put that together.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, very nice.
And that thing's got millions of hits. We had drum corps guys chiming in on it, but those kids put that together, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the kind of production that you can get when you ignite their creativity and you're there to help them learn how to get out what they're trying to get out. And so that has been, because right now, look, let me tell you something, guys, I'm getting up there. I've been doing this a long time. All right. And so what makes me proud is to watch the former students that used to be at Norfolk State out there doing their thing. Bernard down in Atlanta with that drum academy. Woo, playing, you know, and they're all over. Dante Chambers just got left North Carolina Central. He's the high school band director now in Richmond at, forget the school that just hired him for some reason.
TJ, Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. Percussionist came in with me.
Yeah.
And so those guys, you've got to get your kids to be creative, man, and bring that part out of them. And then again, as mentioned before, know the history and study the history before you dive in it. If you do those two things, success is guaranteed. Success will be guaranteed.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I do the same thing and still do it to this day with my guys. I let them write the dance routine or write their song. I might do some, but usually, I let them be creative because they're gonna be a teacher soon.
Yeah.
They major in music or they doing this, so you got to learn some kind of way. So yeah, let them.
And let me tell you this too. Let me tell you, congrats to you because look, music don't have no age.
No.
There's been child prodigies, okay, that can lay down something better than a grown man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Music doesn't have any age, and in some cases, you helping yourself.
Yep.
But you know what we run into? If you're going to be in this business, you cannot be uncomfortable if you run into a student that has maybe in some areas more talent than you. You can't be uncomfortable with that. I've had guys come here that could chop me and I can play. And they could chop me under the ground. All right. And I don't play as much anymore, but when I was practicing every day, I had some nice hands. And I've had guys come in here that could chop me under the ground. And so what I do, I'm challenging them in front of the line. Let's get this out the way. I'm not saying they're as wise as me or know as much, but they can really play. So you can't be intimidated by that. You got to nurture that. All right. You, chopper, chopping hands, fast boy, come with me. And you're going to help me put something down, for this next performance, or I may even give you a solo spot in there, but you can't be intimidated. And that tends to be an issue. Like a lot of times people are asking me, man, who wrote that? If it's not me or Mr. Adams, they can't believe it. And come on, man, they can't believe. Yeah, we just took a student arrangement and played it on you. Yes, but you got to be there to help them fix the small issues. It's got to sound right. You got to balance your chords. You got to play. And speaking of that, one more thing too. And I'm curious to see whether you guys think about drumming like this too. I don't see marching percussion section as drums. I see it as an instrumental group in a band. For example, my snare drum is my trumpet players. My cymbals, the brilliance and the filler, that's my woodwind section. The quints or tenors or whatever you want to call those are your horn, euphonium lines, trombones at times. And of course, the bass drums are the tubas. So when the drum line hits all together at the same time, if I had everybody just play one note on me, boom, I hear a chord. I don't hear a drum beat.
Yeah,
and so when you think about it like that, like they're real instrumentalists, your writing is better, your dynamics is better. They're able to set up, big hits better. And so that's how I've always approached it, man. I don't want to hear drums. I want to hear music back there. And that's how I approach writing. If the snares have the lead line, then everybody else has to get out of the way. The same way you would do a band rehearsal. Everybody doesn't play the same volume. You got to have your melody and your backup parts are quieter so the melody can stick out. So if the tenors have the melody, snares, BD, cymbals, get out of the way, And so that's how I've always taught my guys. And so I'm teaching more from a musicianship aspect as opposed to just drumming. Who cares about Big Kookie, how hard he can hit the bass drum? What does that do except require you to get a new head every week? I'm more interested in when I need that sound, is Big Kookie going to be there? When I don't need it, is he going to be out of the way? And so that's how I've always approached it, man. I'm curious if you guys look at it that way too.
Yes, sir. I do dynamics. I look at it, I look at the drum line as a choir, sopranos, altos, tenor, bass.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a choir. You got to have, you want the snares to stand out, and everybody else piano, mezzo piano.
Yeah.
And I think that's what sets a lot of drum lines, good drum lines from the, not gonna say bad, but is dynamics. You know,
Yeah.
everybody can be playing double forte. You
Yeah.
know, from measure 1 to 20. You know, somebody got to come down. You know, at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's interesting that you guys asked me about the tuning of the bass drums too, because what I also try to make sure is that we keep the bass drum sound away from the tubas.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes that can be challenging because if you tune the BDs wrong, they will interrupt notes and harmonies in the tuba section. It's to be a real weird sound out there. And so I try to always write in the way that even if the bass drum and tuba part have similar rhythmic parts, that I do something in that bass drum part to get the ear away from the tuba sound, you know. And so how you tune, you know, those drums compared to what the tubas are doing is important as well.
Well, I can't say your tuning has been consistent, you know, whether it's indoor or outdoor. You know, the drums always sound the same. I mean, Rick mentioned this a while back in a previous episode, but y'all drums always sound the same. It's hard to tune for indoor drumming, you know, indoor block versus outside, but regardless, y'all drums, you know, always sound the same.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And well, you guys, this has been awesome.
And you know, just piggybacking on that, it's the one thing I've always liked about Norfolk State's Drumline, $1 Million Funk Squad, is just the consistency. You know, like we just talked about, it's just having that consistent sound, and you guys have an overall well blend with your band. The drum line itself is real melodic. It just matches. Your drum line matches the band. It all sounds really cohesive to a listener that's listening in. Someone that's of the craft and knows about music can really just simply say, yeah, they're on point. Everything's aligning just right. Someone who's not amongst the craft might just be, hey, they sound really good, but there's some intricate things that are happening in the drum line, in the band. Every section in the band is working together as one unit. And you really gave us some really good points on that. Thank you.
And I tell you, that's Paul Adams and Dr. Sanford, man. The things that they were able to teach me when I first got this job, especially Paul Adams, because we started working together at Jackson State. And with his ear and some of the things he was asking me to put in the percussion parts, I never, for example, if somebody needs an arrangement from me, I have got to hear the band first. They can send it to me on a MIDI or whatever, but I just don't get a score, look at it, and start writing. I want to hear the band, even a MIDI recording or something that give me an idea of what might need embellishments. I look in the score for things to write in the percussion section, and that's what causes that effect that you're talking about now. And let me tell you, a percussion section can ruin a great arrangement. I tell people all the time, music has 3 parts: melodic content, harmonic content, and rhythm. Don't forget rhythm. The rhythmic flow of the song is just as important as the other 2. Because a lot of times, artists like Beyonce, she writes stuff like in 24/16. It sounds like 4/4, but it's not. It has a little shuffle to it. It has that kind of beat. So if you're playing straight 16ths through there, that's not going to fit. It's not going to fit. And so you got to know those kind of things to make that what you're saying happen. And you know, from working with Paul Adams, you know, and Dr. Sanford, all the guys I've worked with, Stephanie Sanders, great musician. And I want to say something too, man. I haven't done drums here. While they still play some of the things I've written, but I haven't done drums here since I got promoted to band director, which would be 2014. So I had a couple students come in. Frank LaCrone did a hell of a job for a few years. Then he moved to Texas. And now we've got Sean Hall writing for us and taking charge of that percussion section. And those guys, let me tell you, man, when I hear something that outdoes anything that I've done, and both of those guys have achieved it, man, I am so proud and happy. One block that people are sleeping on, they might not be, but I don't hear them talking about it as much, is when we went down to A&T like 3 years ago. And we had that battle in the Greensboro Coliseum. And they had a stage, and the Drumlines had to perform on the stage. That was Sean Hall. Yeah, that presentation Sean Hall put out there is definitely one of the best I've ever heard here, ever. And so I think it's, for me, real gratifying to see, and Frank too. Frank did a hell of a job. That former students coming in, taking that, that mantle and carrying it to another level. I love it. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate you guys, man. Really, man, you for the compliments that you've given us. And I hope you feel the same about me towards your programs too, man. I always had a lot of respect for Virginia State. And all the schools that we go against. That's why it was tough answering that question, man, about which line challenges us the most. I mean, it doesn't matter, man. We up all night getting that stuff together, to get prepared for you guys, prepare for Hampton, prepare for Bethune or A&T, whoever it may be. But it's just been a joy, man. And I think we've helped each other throughout the years. And we got to keep it going. So whatever you guys need me to do, I'm going to be there.
Okay. Well, now that we've come to pretty much the end of this, we're going to give you the bonus question.
Okay, cool.
EP up on it.
You want me to ask or you going to ask?
Okay, so here's the bonus question, and we're not going to hold you too much longer. Outside of the schools that you have instructed for, whether Jackson State, Norfolk State, what is the one drumline, HBCU drumline, that you enjoy to watch? What's the one drumline that you say, hey, you know what, I really like to watch this drum?
It only has to be one?
You know what? I'm gonna leave it up to you.
Okay. I like watching Bethune, Prairie View. You said outside of places that I worked. Probably those two. And I don't watch often because I also appreciate lines like Southern. Southern, their style with their band, the way you mentioned with us, I think works for them. And the cymbals all 6 feet and up when they come in the stadium. I love the ropes on the drums, the style of that. A&T, watch them as well. I might be a bad person to ask this question, bro, because I think everybody brings something to the table. I really do. And I don't, I've been doing this so long. I've seen everybody. Gramblin's had some great years. Tennessee State, I've seen everybody. But more now, what I'm into is watching bands, more so than just the percussion section. I'm really interested in watching what other HBCU bands are doing, what they're bringing to the table. How does that compare to what we're doing? What do we need to be on certain bands levels? That's pretty much what I do now. But Bethune, that's my friend down there, Pedro Ori. We all come from the same stock, same thing at Prairie View, all Johnny Lane students. So we all kind of keep up with each other.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, another great episode with great history and valuable information. We'd like to thank you, Professor Beathea, for taking time out of your day to join us on our podcast. Just say take care and hopefully to have you again, on in the future.
Okay, guys. Thank you for having me. This has been fantastic. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. EP.
A lot of good information, man. Me and him could have talked all night, man. Some of the stuff he was saying, I do with my guys, and
he really touched on some things. If I think about previous episodes that we talked or that we had, especially his influence, his early influence, and we had an episode where we did it from a female's perspective and really talking about, his mom as an influence and his mom getting him into drumming and his mom being a drummer. That was really something big as well. He's had a lot of great opportunities. I think something that's happening right now, just across the country, period, is when we talked about Q6, and he really talked about the different generations, but most important, mental health. And I think you can talk to this because you're in that field as well. You can pretty much see what effect has that had on Virginia.
Yeah. So when he was saying, the parents are controlling, because I worked in a mental health facility, and most of the time it's the kids pissed off at the parents. So they get upset, they get depressed, whatever. They end up, where I was working there. So he had on the head when he was like the parents being controlling, doing this and that. But even now, I go back when I was growing up. Yeah, I guess parents were still controlling, but I guess mental health wasn't as big, or maybe I wasn't aware of it then. But in my opinion, it wasn't as big, when I was growing up, compared to now. But yeah, the parents being controlling, that's a big thing. Because you're doing too much for your kids. Like you said, once you get to college, you overwhelmed. Because damn, now I gotta do this by myself. Or no, my mom was taking care of this, now I gotta go do it. So now I'm overwhelmed, whatever. So yeah, it plays a part.
Yes, definitely something real serious, and it's been brought to light now. And if we think about when we were in school, it would maybe it was there, but it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Maybe it was there, but we didn't realize it, because I know when I got there, it was just like, man, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. I'll see you after homecoming.
I'll see you at Christmas.
Yeah. So, definitely there are some things to really look at. Q9, the question 9, in your opinion, what would you like to see in the future of HBCU drumlines? Professor Beathea, he said something, being progressive, and it's good to be, have your traditions, but also, be progressive, have the line progress every year. The line should progress every year. Something should happen new. He gave some good points as well.
But what if the old heads don't let you progress? I wanted to ask that, but it's kind of slipped my mind. I wanted to ask him that, but what if you're an instructor at a school, but the old heads don't want you to progress? They want you to keep playing those cadences that they played in the early 2000s, on the 90s. Okay, what do you do then?
EP, I'm gonna be honest with you on this one, and I'm glad you asked that question. So I'm gonna use you as a perfect example, right? And I'm gonna use our line as a perfect example. Virginia State University's drumline. You have done a good job, because your writing has now made Virginia State's drumline competitive, period. You have made it competitive on the standpoint of no matter who you're playing against, it's like the military, we got something for everybody. You got something for here, you got something for down here. You just have made it a situation where, hey, look, we can compete against anybody. Originally, it's wrong with the traditions. Those were good for entertainment purposes, but it's not competitive now. It's not. I'm a dinosaur. It's not even relevant. The stuff that you and I thought was on point back when we marched, it's not even relevant now. And that's where I like to leave it. When I come back for homecomings, which is not that much, I really don't want to strap up, because I left on such a high note. I just left on such a perfect note that it was just like, man, anything that I do right now, it's like I can never get back to that point. That's what I'm saying. So I want to commend you for just making everything relevant and making the line progressive and making it competitive for the old heads that come around and say, well, we want to play too. Well, that's great. I hope you would come down and practice, and you guys can go and do your own thing.
I still teach the old cadences.
Yeah.
To the current line. So cadence 1, 2, 4, whatever. A lot of new heads know this stuff. So when the old heads do come back, they're stepping up with them on some of those cases. So, I try to teach, some new stuff, but they also learn their history. What we played for 4 hours, every night, so, so I still teach them the old stuff. We might not get to play it a lot, but they know it. So, I mean, that's my thing, carrying that mixture. You can still progress. You can still play the old stuff, but like but Professor Beathea was saying, gotta progress.
Yeah, I'm me personally, I'm not a fan of it. And I explain why.
Yeah. No, I understand.
I love where it was. Those are my memories.
Mm-hmm.
That's for me. So when I see what's going on now, I'm like, man, I think you and I talked about this. Had we had you when we were there, it'd have been all hands down Smash City. It'd have been unreal. So a lot of times we come back and say, look, we made the best of what we had back then. And I'm glad you're here now. And that's for any instructor that's come into a drumline. Hbcu Drumline has come in and, have really progressed the line, and which it's supposed to, making the line better. And a lot of things is what was happening in the previous episode. What I'm starting to notice now is that sometimes the drum lines, the band's not actually on the same level at this point, writing style wise.
You mean, okay, so far the full band arrangement, correct?
Full band arrangement, yeah.
Yeah, because and he kind of picked on it a little bit, listen to the song, then listen to the band arrangement. You got to find the rhythmic accuracy. You just can't, like you're saying, a song in 4/4, but it has a shuffle beat, or a 16 song in 4/4. You playing a go-go beat.
Yeah.
No, it's not going. And you have to play the exact same thing as the radio, but you got to listen to what the band is playing. You know what I'm saying? The melody. You got to go off the melody, and that's what he was kind of saying.
That's good, man. So this was a powerful episode, man, and Professor Beathea, he just really laid it out there, and for anybody who's watching, reach out to him. You guys can reach out.
We might have to invite him back in the future, man, for a special episode. I don't know. We come up with something.
Right.
A composing episode.
Yeah, just
never know.
So we're gonna go ahead and close it on out. EP, go ahead.
But yeah. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. I'd like to thank our special guest, Professor Beathea, out of Norfolk State University and Jackson State University. Make sure you check out our past episodes and future episodes on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. Just search HBCU Drumline Talk and it'll come up for you. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, HBCU_drum_line_talk for updates and more. Make sure to hit that like and share button while you're there. Until next time, stay safe and keep practicing, drummers.
Everybody have a great week. Please stay safe. Have a good night.